We can now bring in Nikolay Petrov, Senior Fellow at the new Eurasian Strategy Center and a consulting fellow with Chatham House. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Vladimir Zelensky is reportedly speaking right now with the US president. He will likely ask him to ramp up pressure on Russia and Vladimir Putin. Will he get what he wants, you think?
First of all, I don't think that President Trump has a lot of leverage to put bigger pressure on Russia. And second, I think Ukraine is hardly at the center of his plans. And we've heard about the long phone talk between President Putin and President Trump, but they did touch a lot of problems, a lot of interests both countries have in different parts of the world, and not only on Ukraine. So I don't think that there is a way to push Putin in a direction more favorable from the point of view of Ukraine now.
Because there were hopes yesterday when this call was taking place that Russia would agree to the 30-day ceasefire that Kyiv had agreed to a week earlier. It didn't happen. Instead, it seems that Russia is agreeing to a plan that has already been floated by the British and the French for a ceasefire over Ukraine's on Ukraine's energy sites as well as seas and air. But it seems that Russia is doing this in baby steps, agreeing to this plan in baby steps in conjunction with the United States?
First of all, let's understand that there wasn't any real ceasefire plan, because ceasefire is something which should be observed, which should be checked, and there are a lot of technical agreements which should be concluded before the ceasefire. There was the general slogan that it will be good to have 30 days of ceasefire, but it couldn't happen overnight.
Do you think Russia is hesitant for a full-fledged ceasefire right now because it is making gains on the battlefield?
I think that Putin feels that he is in much stronger position than Ukraine is. He's not in a hurry. He can continue. And he feels like he's winning the war of attrition, unlike Ukrainians. That's why it's not that easy to negotiate with him.
It seems from the Kremlin's readout of the call that took place yesterday with the US president that Russia and the United States are thinking about their futures down the line, in the long term, bilaterally, how they can solve problems in the Middle East, how they can tackle Iran, how they can host hockey games together. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, it is. And I think that we do not know exactly which regions and which projects, including Arctic, where interests of the United States and Russia overlap, including Near East and all other parts of the world have been discussed. But it looks like Trump is not very much focused on Ukraine itself. And that's why they could discuss very different plans and ideas where Russia can either oppose or can not oppose the United States and its interests. And China is perhaps the biggest of these.
You said earlier that Donald Trump doesn't have leverage over Russia's President Vladimir Putin, but just a couple of days ago, we had the US president who said he had tools at his disposal, sanctions, financial tools that would cause a lot of harm. Is that something he could use to get Vladimir Putin to jump on board to a ceasefire?
I don't think so. If only the United States president would have these tools, they would be used because the war is going on for 3 years. They were not used just due to the fact that there are not so many tools. The trade between Russia and the United States is negligible, and all other ways to put bigger pressure on Russia have been used, and moreover, they cannot have immediate effect.
From the Kremlin readout of the call yesterday, it seemed that Russia and the US want to solve the war in Ukraine bilaterally. They were quite specific on that term. Is Europe going to be frozen out of the equation no matter what it tries to do?
I think that President Trump is interested not so much in fixing the conflict and stopping the war, but just to demonstrate that he did invest certain efforts. And if only Ukraine or Europe will not agree with conditions, it will be the problem of Ukraine and Europe, not of the United States.
How do you think this conflict is going to end? Will Ukraine get to have a say in its future?
Yes, absolutely. But it's needed to understand that so far Ukraine doesn't have good options on the table. So we can speak about just end of the war. We can speak about restoration of, justice in general. But we should understand that it will be not achieved in a short while. So Ukraine will choose between bad and worse options.
And in terms of security guarantees, will European troops, troops of NATO member states, will they be allowed to be positioned in Ukraine to oversee whatever ceasefire does come into effect?
I think that the single way to have a kind of game changer would be direct participation of European NATO countries in this war. All other ideas are not acceptable for Russia, and perhaps will take much more time from European countries to be realized.
Nikolay Petrov, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today.